Well, I mean, this is the whole point of making these rankings so people can fight about them, right? It's just I have a louder voice and I talk like, so it sounds like I'm right.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy right now. We'll get you a match deposit of up to $100. And there's something special coming for everyone who uses Code Mayo in order to sign up during Masters Week, because there's going to be a promo running on Underdog that gives you a Scottie Scheffler free square for one of your entries, higher or lower than 0.5 strokes on Thursday, round one at the Masters. As good as Scottie is, I think he's going to go higher than 0.5 strokes. No zeros on the card for Scottie if he completes his round, so that's a free square. But if you use Code Mayo right now, everyone that has used Code Mayo in order to sign up for Underdog Fantasy will also get an additional free square of Jordan Spieth, higher or lower than 0.5 strokes on Thursday. So 2 free squares in 2 separate entries you can use, plus the match deposit, makes you good to go. And if you do that, screenshot me that you used Code Mayo to sign up at Underdog. If you've previously done it, then you are in the draw. I'm giving away 3 cash prizes. No credits, cash prizes of $250 each. That will get you lots of ballots into that draw, as will rating and reviewing and subscribing to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. If you have not done that as of yet, then go do that and then leave a 5-star review. 10 ballots for Apple, 10 ballots for Spotify. You do them both, plus you get signed up. You got a good chance of winning this draw. I'm not going to lie to you. If you've done it before, please go do it again to bump your name to the very top of the list. All right? Joining me to break this all down, I came out with the Mayo WGR, or the unofficial World Golf Rankings, where I rank the top 30 players in the world. You may have already watched that show because it's coming out. This is the B-side, how we actually came to that. So I submitted the article to Golf Digest. So I figured that I'd have on some of the editors at Golf Digest to talk this through and really figure out what order the players should be in. And we haven't come up with number 30 yet. So that's going to be a part of this show too. When you see the first guy that I list off, and I do the stand-up for at number 30, it's after we've talked this all through. You know, some of these things get shot out of order. So I have Stephen Hennessy and Chris Powers from golfdigest.com. Fellas, I noticed that in the golf betting column that we do every week, you guys are losing horribly to me.
Dude, you're cleaning up in the matchups, especially. You're like, 85% for the season.
If I only...
That's funny. It's funny. I was looking at your matchup record tonight, building the post, and thought, man, I should just start tailing all of Pat's, but I'm not going to do that to you, Pat. That would be a bad deal for you.
Don't mush him.
Yeah, you can't mush me on that. So let's talk through these rankings. Like I was so excited to do this because everyone's just arguing about this all the time, and I put out a few feelers about it, and literally every response that I get to it is something the exact opposite of what the person said to them before. I think that the only ranking that people are comfortable with on this entire list, Steve, is Scottie Scheffler at 1.
Yeah, that's undisputable. Comes in as the favorite at plus 450 or even lower now. I mean, it's absurd what he's doing. You've contextualized it well in our article, and he's the guy to beat. As you said, even the live bots are kind of shutting up about anyone else being number 1. So it's Scottie and everyone else. It's very reminiscent of DJ in 2017, coming in off 3 wins. So as long as we get Scottie to, not fall down a set of stairs going into the Masters, he's rightfully the favorite.
Chris, I like to call it the sex swing accident with DJ.
I'm not going to comment on that, but I know for a fact Scottie Scheffler is not going to get in similar trouble as DJ, just based off of kind of the vibe Scottie gives off. So I think no swings, no stairs, nothing for Scottie next week.
Yeah, he's going to leave the swings for the course. So this isn't a Masters power rankings. This is a power rankings of if the official World Golf Rankings didn't exist and this took its place, which it should, mind you, because these rankings are way better than the official golf rankings right now. That there's elements of trying to project people out, how people have done recently, how people have done at the bigger events, the consistency that people show over time. That like if Scheffler doesn't win the Masters, even if Rahm wins the Masters, like Chris, do you think if Rahm won the Masters and Scheffler came like 7th, that all of a sudden you'd say that Rahm is the best player in the world and it's not Scottie Scheffler?
Well, I agree with Steve's point before that it is kind of indisputable, but I would just throw Rom in there if you wanted to have the debate. Like that's probably the only guy you could maybe say, even without a ton of information on him, and obviously not a ton of live events to go off of. I would say, yeah, probably if he defends his title, I think he would have a case.
What about you, Steve? Because like I think that the top, maybe that's kind of the case right now, because we would say that about Rom if he did it. But if Wyndham Clark won the Masters, would he be the best player in the world?
I don't think so.
Well, why not?
To your point, Pat, it's a longer sample of major success, and not only does Scotty have 22 Masters and all this other great success on the PGA Tour, but it's the sustained success in majors, 6 top tens outside of the wins in majors since 2020. So to me, Wyndham Clark bumps up to maybe third. I think that's actually where you have him on your list, but I still think he would have to have more sustained success than Rahm. And obviously he has these big wins, but he needs to just generate a little more consistency for me.
Well, he has the U.S. Open win. He has 2 signature event wins. He came second at API, a signature event. He came second at the Players. He was third at the Tour Championship. Like, I'd say the guy's doing pretty well. And granted, he didn't qualify for the Masters last year. Chris, he didn't qualify for the match play this time last year. He wasn't inside the top 64 in the world.
Forgot about that event's existence, unfortunately. That is crazy, but I guess kind of the point Steve was trying to make is let's see him do it another year, and we get to kind of kick that off next week at Augusta, obviously. So if he shows up again at all these majors now and keeps kind of popping off at the bigger ones, the elevated events as well, I think, you've got a little bit of a big 3 situation going on.
So I think it's the big 3 right now. Like on the tier, like Scheffler's by himself in my rankings, and then I have Rahm, then Wyndham Clark. And for a while I toyed with Clark over Rahm because, frankly, outside of Scheffler, no one has been better the past 12 months than Wyndham Clark has, which is weird, having bet on him and watched him for the 5 years previous to him doing really well and me not winning a cent off him being great. He's probably one of the most like players I'm down on the most in like my betting history. Just because I used to bet him at the Honda, bet him here. It's like, oh, Wyndham Clark, yeah, he drives the ball really well. If his irons ever got going, he could be really great. And he finally put it all together. Like the thing that I've weighted most in these rankings is recent form, because almost any PGA Tour pro will tell you that that's what matters at the moment. That's what this is trying to contextualize. Who are the best players right now? And the second biggest metric on that list, Steve, is how you did in majors and how you do at strong field events. And Clark basically only shows up at the strong field events. He doesn't seem to give a shit about the other ones.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, maybe I'm just a creature of habit with the world rankings, but Rahm is, he was T2 at the last major they played at the Open, and that was really impressive to me. Started off with that 74 and then rallied T2. So yeah, I think the point I was trying to make to CP's point before is I need to see it on a longer sample size in the majors for Clark. And I already have with Rahm. I kind of know what Rahm is. I still need to know what Wyndham Clark is at the majors.
Sure. So Chris, would you not have Clark a part of this tier? Like it would be Scotty, then Rahm, and then the rest of the players in the rankings.
No, I'm comfortable putting him in that tier. I would throw Brooks in there. I'm a Brooks guy. And if we're talking about kind of longevity in the majors, obviously he had the down years with the injuries, but you go all the way back to 2017.
Okay, hold on. Why are we going back to 2017? Are we putting fucking Tiger Woods number 2 in this list? Like, what's going on?
That's true. Good point.
But this is where people fall in, like when the debates start happening, and that becomes a trap. Because I agree with you, and like even as I wrote up, and people can read the column on Golf Digest, it's probably out by the time that people are watching to this or listening to this. Thank you for watching and listening to this, by the way. That Brooks doesn't really fall into any sort of grading metric that you can do. Like I wrote, like he could come dead last in every live event. No one would care as long as he showed up and played well at the Masters and at the PGA Championship and all of the majors and the international events like the Ryder Cup or President's Cup, that you kind of have to take him out of this. Like I have him at number 5 because I think that Hideki has been awesome and people haven't quite figured that out yet. I have him at number 4, which people are going to be mad about, but I don't know, push back against Hideki why he shouldn't be number 4 right now.
Yeah, I have Hideki at 7th in my little rankings. I totally understand why you have him at 4. And I think he's a great bet at what's the current number? 35, 40 to 1 at the Masters. I think that's great. To me, it's just Koepka's consistent major form. You know, Hideki hasn't really done it recently at the majors, and not to say he can't. Again, obviously he won the Masters just a few years ago, but Koepka won last year at Oak Hill, was really close at the Masters. So he's continued to prove that he's an alpha when it comes to the big events. Hideki has proved that he's capable of playing like that, but you know, we'll see if he continues this great run that he's on this year. I would just put him a little below these other guys, Koepka and a few others that we'll get to.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Masters. He played like crap for most of last year. Like the driving was completely out of sorts. And he still didn't finish any worse than T32 at any of the majors, Chris.
Yeah, I actually just pulled it up just to kind of check Steve on it. And he's right. You know, he never factored in on Sunday, but yeah, 32nd worst finish at LACC, 13th at the Open, 29th PGA, 16th at the Masters. So, you know, a lot of guys would sign for that year. Obviously, Hideki is not one of those guys. He's kind of striving for perfection, but still a pretty solid year in the majors for him, especially when he didn't have his best stuff.
And when we take a look at this year, I mean, he won an elevated event. He has 3 top 10s coming in. So the recent form really shifts towards Hideki in that sense. And it all just, I mean, you can just kind of look down the page. I mean, everyone should just go to fantasynational.com/Mayo, get yourself 20% off, make this easy on yourself. But like the driving is back. It's longer, it's accurate. And last year, it was just in the negatives almost every single event. So I don't know what happened to his driver last year, but he's seemingly solved that. And he's going to have his bad putting weeks, but a lot of the top guys have their bad putting weeks. So I think if you're looking at overall play, yeah, if this was a ranking of players who play well in majors, Brooks would be higher. But it's an all-encompassing world ranking at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm projecting out major success for Koepka this year, and that might be unfair because he might miss the cut at the Masters, and then all of a sudden I would bump him down to 7 or 8. So yeah, it's tough to do this at the start of the year because, you know, all we could go off of is last year, and given these live guys and, you know, those results don't mean too much to us. So I'm using a little bit of mental gymnastics.
Well, that was probably the most difficult part of this entire exercise. And you just kind of said the live results don't mean much to us. But Chris, Joaquin Niemann is unbeatable on the live tour. Therefore, he's a top 5 player in the world. Like, which one is it? Do they mean something or they don't mean anything?
I did think that the one Joaquin Niemann win seemed to mean something when he beat Sergio Garcia in the playoff. That, you know, obviously they've got a lot of good players now. They've got Rahm over there. They've got DJ over there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question sufficiently.
Yes, like it comes to the point where if Niemann gets all this credit for winning these events, why do Rahm and Brooks not? Why is it okay for them to not win these events and it's not held against them? Where if a guy plays on the PGA Tour and plays and doesn't win, it's like, oh, he sucks.
Yeah, I think we're giving credit for the wins and not giving credit for the average performances. That's just sort of how we're netting out. And I feel like most of golf is doing that, whether that's fair or unfair. That's where I'm at.
See, that's why I wanted to try to take a more objective point of view with this and try to weight everything accurately. And Rahm does get benefit of the doubt. I mean, he has come top 10 in every live start that he's made, but he's held these leads down the stretch on Sunday and not won. Like that's, I mean, if that was Rory, people would be like, kick him off the tour. He sucks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, that Rahm kind of did struggle with that for a little bit up until winning the Masters, obviously, and the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. But yeah, he definitely hasn't gotten properly knocked for the 2 live choke jobs we've seen.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to when I was trying to like debate between 2 guys. It kind of came down to a coin flip situation for me. If 2 guys were really close or 3 guys were really close, I just kind of asked myself, who would I want to win this for me on Sunday on the back 9? And that's where Rahm still comes in number 2, just because I have the faith that he would get it done. I think we forget that Rahm's run from Tournament of Champions 2023 to his Masters win last year was probably better than Scotty's playing right now for the past 3 months. But then he just didn't play all that. Like, he got run down by Finau in Mexico, Steve. Finau.
Yeah. I mean, Finau in Mexico is, that's tough to beat for anybody. No, I'm with you. I did a similar exercise. I said, who would I trust the most in a major, in the final round? And that's sort of how I arrived at my rankings. So, it's not all encompassing and not really objective. I think you did a more objective job probably with your ranking.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with Hideki, Chris, unless you got something like a silver bullet for me to not rank him at number 4. Just I think he's played too well. And like you said, he actually has pretty good Masters track record recently. He's won a Masters. He has a bunch of top 5s, throughout the course of the years in major championships and is playing well at very strong events. I don't see the case against him, really.
No pushback from me. Great showing at the Players. Almost avenged 2020. Although I know one of your co-hosts has given him that win already. I believe that Players Championship win. So, yeah, recent form is there for Hideki for sure.
I was told this week, actually, before the Valero started, that Hideki's win at the 2020 Players, Steve, was more impressive than Jordan Spieth's win at the Valero Texas Open like 2 years ago.
That's a bold take. That one round,
it didn't even finish.
Right, it didn't even finish. But hey, I mean, it was a 63, and we're still talking about it.
Yep.
So I have Rory next at number 6. It feels low for Rory, but I don't want to come on here and just be some sort of Rory apologist to say that he's been a great player this year, where, Steve, he hasn't been a great player this year. Although, when we look at it, Scheffler has a win, Clark has a win, Hideki has a win, Rory has a win. Brooks doesn't. Rahm doesn't. Basically the list after these guys all don't have wins. That, although the results have been inconsistent, he has found the winner's circle in 2024.
Yeah. I have Rory in that same spot at 6. I have Niemann at 5, actually, which is probably a pretty big jump from yours, Pat. I think you had him down in the in the teens. We'll talk about that, but
I have him at 10.
think with Rory at 10, yeah, and Data Golf has him around that. I'm giving him credit for these victories, like we just said. I'm not knocking the guys who haven't got it done on Live, but Niemann, to beat these fields in the way he has, I expect big things from him this year. And he also won in Australia.
So he won like an Asian Tour event in Australia. Why don't we give John Catlin number 6 in the rankings too then? What are we talking about here?
Well, there's a reason why the Masters extended an invitation to him. He won, the biggest event in Australia. That's a big deal.
All right, so Nick Taylor won the biggest event in Canada. Should he be up here too?
Man, that guy's a killer. I don't know.
It feels like we want Niemann to be good. So therefore we rank him highly, and you can project out all you want. And listen, I have him at number 10. I think he's a great player, but he's also the same guy that has one top 20 finish in a major in 19 starts.
Yep. I'm very aware of that as one who's bet him numerous times in majors, and probably will again next week. So I don't know if I would have him that high. I'm not ready to put him over Victor Hovland or even our boy Xander Schauffele, who obviously gets a ton of flack for finishing second one too many times.
Yeah, so so the next 2, 6 and 7, I have Rory and Xander. It's if we're gonna do this based on objective metrics like how you finish, consistency, performance in big events, Xander doesn't win those events, but he has plenty of runner-up. What did I have here where is it on Xander? Here it is. Gagatha Christie, which is a fantastic name for him. But he has a top 20 finish in 7 straight majors, Steve.
Oh, it's insane. And he's got 8 top 10s in his last 11 starts and, almost did at the Players. Yeah, I think it's really tough to make a case for moving Xander down this list. The only case you can make is he doesn't win, but he's obviously one of the elites, and I think you have him in the right spot.
Yeah, but I mean, you have Niemann ahead of him in your rankings. I'm not going to put Niemann ahead of him in my rankings. That sounds crazy.
Well, Niemann's won a few more times. I don't know.
Xander's not playing in Australia.
He could have. He could have went over there. He went over to South Africa where Homa won, right? And he didn't win there either.
Let's try to figure this out, because we didn't hurt Rahm for not winning. We didn't hurt Brooks for not winning. Niemann apparently gets all the credit in the world for winning. If we were to do this at this time last year, would Taylor Gooch be inside the top 5 for you with 3 live wins?
Touche. I mean, maybe he should have. Yeah.
So, you would have ranked Taylor Gooch inside the top 5?
He might have been in my top 10. I
No, he
think.
wouldn't have. That's a fucking lie. Chris?
No, I would not have put Taylor Gooch in last year. Although I don't know, this year with the addition of Rahm, those fields are definitely getting a little bit, tiny bit stronger for sure. But last year, no, Taylor Gooch would not have been in my top 10.
Yeah, and I think that, like, so much of the live, like how we rate the live guys are what we thought of their career when they left the PGA Tour. So Niemann gets all this
Right.
credit because we expected him to be really good, and then he's been really good. Gooch was like, I don't know, discount Matt Kuchar in his prime. So it's like, all right, like how good is Taylor Gooch ever really going to be? So even if he got better, which apparently he did, and he had a nice run towards the end of his PGA Tour career, picking up that win at the RSM, that no one really believed he was like a top player in the world. Then he goes to the majors and shits the bed at all of them that he ends up qualifying for. So you can kind of write him off where you can't do the same thing to Niemann. I understand it's not an apples to apples comparison, but when we're doing the rankings and seeing the results, they kind of have to be, don't they?
Yeah, if you're doing objectively like you have, I think so. I'm realizing I'm being a little too subjective with my ranking. The more we're talking about Niemann.
Well, I mean, this is the whole point of making these rankings so people can fight about them, right? It's just I have a louder voice and I talk like an asshole, so it
That's
sounds
the
like
whole-
I'm right.
That's the point of everything. Fight over it. Yeah.
Head over to Underdog Fantasy right now. Get that deposit match of up to $100. But if you use code Mayo with the Masters coming up, we got some extra special bonuses for you on top of everything. If you use code Mayo right now at UnderdogFantasy.com, you will unlock not one, but 2 free squares for Masters Week. You'll get the Scotty Scheffler free square that everyone is getting, higher or lower than 0.5 strokes on Thursday. However, by using code Mayo, you unlock the Jordan Spieth free square for Thursday, higher or lower than 0.5 strokes as well. Those will become available Tuesday of Masters Week, but get in now at Underdog Fantasy using code Mayo to make sure that you have the best advantages possible. So I go Rory and Xander. So Rory is, like I described him as the anti-Brooks. That Brooks gets all this credit for major championships because, he wins them and he comes, in second place. But Rory comes in second place in a major. And does he get any credit for that, Chris? No, he's just a loser who doesn't win.
Yeah, and I'm unfortunately one of the ringleaders in that circus, so I probably shouldn't comment on it.
Yeah, past 2 years, Rory is third in strokes gained per round at major championships against everyone on earth, Steve.
Yeah, it's crazy. He didn't win the U.S. Open. It's not crazy, but he obviously should have. And you could look at 4 or 5 other majors where he should have got it done. And, that's why people love to knock him. It's the talent and just the lack of getting over the line. But, 6, you could even argue that he should be higher, but I have him at 6 as well.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument that he should be higher. And I think that the baseline argument for Rory, despite the stats, the results, and everything else, Chris, is that the fact that people expect him to win every major that he enters, I think kind of speaks to how high in the rankings he should be. And that's for people who love Rory, they expect him to win. And people who hate Rory also expect him to win. That's why they think he's a loser for coming in third or something.
Absolutely. He almost meets the expectations by finishing in the spots that he does, but unfortunately the silver medals are not what get the people going. And again, I think part of it is also we are now going on a decade if he doesn't get it done this year.
Yeah, it's hard to win. But, does he get credit?
Very hard.
You were going back to 2017 for major championships. Does Rory not get credit for the next decade and a half of his results? He has 4 in that time.
That was impressive at Kiowa back in 2012, 14. What was that? Hoylake? No, I guess you're right.
Hey, he's going back to Valhalla. He has a win there. Maybe he can get another one there this year. Who knows? So I think that those are the big 7 to me. And I think that after that, you can get into some real conversations about these guys and how they have ordered. Now, I submitted the top 7. And listen, they're my rankings, so I don't want to budge off them all that much. But you guys have not been doing a good job of pushing me on any of these stances. I need the heat on this next section because I think there's a group of like 15 guys that you can kind of move in and out. At 8, I have Victor Hovland, which I don't feel good about. But it came back to if I had done these rankings in December, he would have been number 3 on this list. So realistically, 4 months later, how low can I really drop him? He fired his coach. The chipping has reverted back to being shitty. He's not driving the ball as well. His irons have been absolutely putrid, but he just did win the FedEx Cup playoffs. He won at Memorial. He won the second playoff event. He had a fantastic Ryder Cup that didn't play golf for like 3 months. Is he just someone who's, is he suffering through like the Cam Smith effect from when Cam Smith went to live and it seemed like he just didn't give a fuck about golf for 4 months?
I don't know about that. I might slot in our boy Zalatoris over Victor Hovland right now if we're talking about the recent form and kind of performing in some of the bigger events this season, except for the Players, which I naturally bet on him there. But yeah, Victor Hovland definitely deserves credit for that incredible finish to 2023 for sure.
Yeah, so I have Hovland, Cam Smith, Niemann, Zalatoris, who you just brought up, Chris. So, Steve, I initially had Zalatoris higher, and the more I thought about it he was sort of the cutoff point with Niemann, where it's like, I can't really say that Zalatoris should be ranked higher than Niemann if Zalatoris has one win in his career.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you where Hovland is. I have him slightly lower, and I could be talked out of this, but I do have Aberg higher than him. And I went into this saying, who do I trust right now to take down a major? Now, Aberg hasn't played a major, so a little tough. So again, I'm projecting out based on the talent. And what I've seen from Hovland recently with the short game is really bad. And anytime you fire, your short game coach who taught you this technique and really improved your short game, and now you've struggled, I need to see that improvement. Where's that path to getting back to where he was last year? And he was, like you said, he would have been third or fourth on this list going into this season. So I'm not willing to go lower than 10, but to me, I'm a little more confident that Aberg, if he wins the Valero this week, I mean, you could have him higher than Xander, higher than Niemann. You could have him in the top 8, I think, with Aberg.
Yeah, but he hasn't done that. So it's hard to rank him higher. There's a whole bunch of these guys. Well, listen, if Patrick Cantlay shows up and wins the Masters, let's put him at number 4.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we're talking about Ober, however you say it. I might have Cam Young ahead of him. I was just looking at your write-up on Cam Y, kind of similar to the Rory comparison you were making. Guy who's played really well in the majors and only a handful that he's played in. Obviously, Ludwig has not gotten a chance to do that yet, but recent form there as well, as we know. So, I wouldn't be so ready to take Ludwig over Cam Young right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's one that I can be talked out of because that's where my tier kind of ended. So I had like 2 mini tiers. So I had Hovland at 7, Cam Smith at 8. Sorry, Hovland at 8, Smith at 9, Niemann at 10, Zalatoris at 11, Oberg, Brian Harman, and Cam Young. And I don't even feel good about that Brian Harman ranking, but like the guy won a major. He just came second at the Players. I feel like this is the best he's ever going to be, and that does hold him back. But I don't know, like going forward, I would rather bet Cameron Young at the same number every single time than bet Brian Harman. But part of these rankings, you do get credit for winning things and doing well in tournaments, and Brian Harman has done that. So I think that he needs to be here, even if just in our minds he's not as he's not as good as Dustin Johnson or something like that. But he has to be ranked over him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I'm a Brian Harman guy. I'd happily go to the window to bet Harman right now.
Would you do you think he should be higher or lower? Like, do you think that talent-wise, he's really the 13th best player in the world?
Yeah, I do. I think you've got him in a good spot there. I would take him over Colin Morikawa for sure. Just picking out names. Dustin, I don't know about that. I think we're still going to see some alpha Dustin Johnson this year. I'm actually pretty excited to see that.
But again, you can't say I think we're going to see this year, and that's the basis of your ranking. That doesn't make any sense.
Correct. Yeah, I'm probably not the best guy to talk about this, I guess, because I'm just projecting.
Steve.
I mean, I think Harman is a little too low on your list, Pat. I mean, we're talking about the most recent major winner, second at the Players, and the way that lefties play at Augusta, again, that's projecting
They haven't played Augusta yet.
I know, but I'm saying, like, I'm more confident in Harman next week than even Cam Young based on what we've seen this year and based on Cam Young not being able to win a tour event. Brian Harman has proven he's a closer. He almost got it done a couple weeks ago at TPC Sawgrass. I think just the
Hold
eye
on.
test
Say that again. Brian Harman is a closer. He almost got it done.
but he won the last major.
That's great.
did.
He has 2 wins in 15 years.
Cam Young has 0 wins and the most runner-ups out of
Sure.
anyone.
This is his 3rd year on tour. He has 7 runners up.
Yeah, but he's 27. It's time to put up or shut up with Cam Young.
He is old.
Yeah.
You guys are calling
He's got
20.
2 kids.
He's got
He's might as well be going on 40.
I apologize to John Deere Classic winner of 2014, Brian Harman. He has 3 wins in the past 10 years on tour. It's just his lack of driving ability just severely limits him outside of certain places. That it's going to be a problem for him I have Harman ahead of Cam Young, but you could talk me into Cam Young higher. Like, his trajectory is no different than what we saw with Xander or Scheffler. Like, he's a guy, his first 2 years has played amazing. He has top 10 finishes in 4 of the 7 majors that he's played in his career. Like, this is the path of someone who's going to win a ton. Now, he hasn't done that yet, so he's not ranked higher than Brian Harman. But I think if you were projecting going forward, especially for this year, like if these were the rankings of who I think is going to win a major, which they're not, by the way, that he would be way higher than Brian Harman for 2024.
correct.
Yeah, I'm just giving Harman the credit where it's due for actually getting it done.
Yeah, you're giving Harman credit. Then you're like, Oberg, number 6.
Like I said, subjective. My ranking is a little flawed.
Yeah, well, this is why we're here to talk it out. And you can see my points on all of this, too. I need people to know. And it was just like Zalatoris versus Cam Young. Zalatoris has the win and has, no player has actually averaged more strokes gained in major championships per round than Zalatoris has the past 2 years. It's Zalatoris, Scheffler, Rory. Those are the top 3. I think just because he was injured last year, people forgot about how good he is at these huge events.
Yep, absolutely. Brookline was right there. Obviously, Augusta, as well as Southern Hills. He was pretty incredible, and Cam was kind of right there with him for a number of them as well.
Yeah, like sometimes you got to learn how to lose. I mean, just think about. I've always thought about this. Like, I know that the narrative of like when did Phil win his first Masters? Like 32 or 33 or something like that.
Yeah, 34, right?
Yeah, like what was the narrative? Like I lived through it, but I don't remember people were like, oh yeah, like Phil just can't win the big one. But no one thought like Phil was actively bad.
Right. He was still the second best player, to Tiger, but he still never was able to get it done. And that's what so many people identify as success in the sport is winning. So, and Phil had done it prolifically, just not in majors. So yeah, big year for Cam Young and Zalatoris. I mean, Data Golf has him down in the 60s. Obviously it's because he was hurt all last year, but he's closer to that 20 to 15 range for me.
Yeah, I just think that he's better than that based on the performance that he's put up in the big events. You know where Zalatoris sucks, Chris? The events that people don't care about, that Nick Dunlap wins.
Yes. Last week, Houston Open, barely made the cut.
Yeah, couldn't putt. The putter can be a real problem until he gets weirdly enough, like when you go look at his strokes gained putting at the Masters, despite him losing ever, he gains there. In the fast USGA greens, he gains on those. It's really strange sometimes. Just some of these, like his tee to green game is so strong that it almost feels like listen, he's not as good of a ball striker as Scheffler is, but he has sort of like the 80% version of Scheffler's game, along with all the putting struggles that come along with it. That just if you putt somewhat well one of these weeks, it's got to happen for him. Like he was the next guy up to do all this stuff, and now it feels like people forgot that that's what they thought a year ago just because he got hurt.
Yeah, and windows tend to shut pretty quickly. Unfortunately, I hate to break that to everyone, but I think Zalatoris missed a few prime opportunities. I hope for his sake that he can close one of these soon. But I think people forgot about him for sure.
We'll see. Steve, where do you have Cam Smith?
Cam Smith, I have at 14, which might be a little controversial. I have him below Patrick Cantlay and Max Homa. again, it's probably a little unfair. I've just seen more from Cantlay and Homa the last couple of years, and getting victories on the PGA Tour. Again, I'm contradicting myself from before, but Cam Smith, he had the 2022 Open win. Aside from that, I don't really know what he's done. So to me, I still think he's a top 15 player. And if you want to put him top 10 like you did, Pat, I get it. But to me, I think Homa and Cantlay deserve some credit for getting these victories on the PGA Tour.
Patrick Cantlay, who hasn't won in 3 years, that guy.
Been 3 years, really. My God.
I'm sorry. He won the team event with Xander. Apologies.
Was the Bryson event you're talking about? That was 3 years ago.
The Bryson event?
The BMW.
Yeah, he won the BMW
in Delaware.
Yeah, he won in 2021.
God, time flies when Patrick Cantlay's not winning PGA Tour events, I guess.
Yeah, he's lost strokes. Let's see here. He's lost strokes tee to green in 4 of his past 5 starts.
Yeah, he's been bad.
That's really bad. Like, he's been a bad player on the PGA Tour now for like 6 months. And he hasn't won in 3 years.
Unfortunately, Homa's been kind of bad of late as well.
Well,
but has much more recent wins, of course.
Yeah, even to look at Homa, like I have Homa 2 spots ahead of Cantlay. Like he played well on the Ryder Cup team, and after he finally got his first top 10 at a major at the Open Championship last year, and then at every other event that he played the rest of the season, he didn't finish outside the top 10. He has multiple wins over the past few years. This year has not been going well for him. Like, I don't have these guys ranked highly at all. Like, they're the upper teens, lower 20s kind of thing. Just because I don't see it with him right now. And it's like Morikawa, I think, deserves a little bit more credit than those guys, considering he won in November. He has 2 major championships, and he has the one skill that is the most important. It's just off the rails right now. And even he got hurt by this. It's not like, Colin Moore, I don't know why I did this. And I guess this is part of the discussion of why I gave Cam Smith so much more credit than I gave Colin Morikawa. Like, Cam Smith's won 3 times on LIV. He just lost in a playoff in Hong Kong. So the form is a little bit better. But I just, if we're thinking about upside in general, everything kind of came together for him to win that Open Championship. And he won Tournament of Champions and he won the Players all in that same year. Chris, I just found it very reminiscent of when Molinari went on that nuclear run for 5 months and won 3 times and won an Open Championship. Not to say that Cam Smith is going to turn to whatever the hell Molinari is now, but maybe he's not a top 10 guy?
No, I would have Cam Smith in the top 10. I would weight that Players victory pretty greatly. And then, of course, the Open Championship win as well. Hasn't done a ton on LIV, but no, I would keep him in the top 10 for sure.
Well, I mean, you would rate the Players Championship pretty high. It was 3 years ago. My sense of time is pretty poor tonight, isn't it? Well, I think that this one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion was that I do think that this weighs on people's mind. Like, they remember these things that happen, and whenever the last major big thing that people remember about someone feels like it happened yesterday. And with Cam Smith, all these wins came in 2022. That's not recent form at this point. Yeah, he gets credit for winning on LIV and he gets credit for winning those big tournaments, but that was a while ago now. Versus someone like Justin Thomas, who has 2 major wins. He won the PGA Championship 2 years ago. Everyone's like, that guy is terrible. He shouldn't be on the list. Because he lost 7 strokes putting in 1 round 2 weeks ago.
But he also failed to make the playoffs last year, and say about that what you want, but and he's getting back to that form. Obviously, he seems like he's on the precipice of it, but just hasn't gotten it done when it matters most. At Riviera, missed the cut. At the Players, was really disappointing. So I think you have him pretty well slotted, Pat, with JT. But Cam Smith's an interesting one. I mean, I bet him at pretty much every major last year because I was projecting out based on 2022. Now this year I'm pumping the brakes a little.
Yeah, and he didn't win any of those majors, but one of the comparisons that I made is that Cam Smith came 4th at LA Country Club, despite the fact they had no chance to win that event. It was sort of like Rahm's T2 at the Open Championship. He was never really on the leaderboard until Sunday, and he finished 5 shots back. He had no chance to win that event. But Cam Smith's oh, look, he's great. He came 4th at the U.S. Open versus Rory, who came 2nd, who lost it on the last hole. It's that guy's terrible.
Bum.
What a loser. I always just find that discussion funny, and that's kind of the stuff that I wanted to drag out of this. So I really haven't been flipped all that much. Like, Chris, gun to your head, Niemann or Cam Smith?
Ooh. Niemann.
And Steve, you like Niemann as well?
Yeah, for sure. Niemann's in my top 5. Cam Smith's, near 15th or so. So it's definitely Niemann for me.
All right. That is a change that I will make in the rankings then. I will swap Niemann for Cam Smith. I'll bump Niemann to number 9, a spot behind Hovland, and put Cam Smith at number 10, right on the precipice, because I want to see what he's going to be doing for these events. And then, so it goes Hovland, Niemann, Smith, Zalatoris, Oberg, Harmon, Cam, Young. That is the first 15, I believe that it is. The first 14. Number 15, I have Sahith Theegala, who, when I wrote, the more I wrote him up and more work I did into his game, he's basically Spieth and Cam Smith, except he can drive the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, and the one weakness of his is being a little inaccurate off the tee, which we know doesn't really matter at the Masters. So I love him for Augusta. CP and I have been betting him pretty much every week, losing money on him. So yeah, I think he's for sure a top 17. And he's pushing on the top 15 if he has some good success in the majors this year.
Yeah, he's lost, despite the inaccuracy, he's only lost strokes off the tee once since the last year's Open Championship, and that was at Pebble Beach in only 2 weighted rounds. And he was bad there, and it's really the approach play for him. Like, we know he's an amazing putter. He has that like magic beans. The tougher the situation gets, the better he's going to get. Even if he drives it into your backyard, he's going to scramble for par. We don't really worry about that. Saying it was really illuminating to me that in his debut at Augusta, he finished inside the top 10, was able to navigate those green complexes and the greens. And he's gotten so much better off the tee over the past 6 months. And his approach game is hot and cold. He either gains 4 strokes or loses 3 strokes. If you can catch him in that right week, he feels like he's just on the verge of becoming a top 10 player in the world, because he possesses the traits that other major championship winners have had, except he has one skill that's way better than all of those. He just needs to get it all on the same page at the same time. So I like him at 15. And then after that, it's Theegala, Morikawa, DJ Fitzpatrick, Homa, Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Finau, Sam Burns, Bryson, and Spieth. That's like the next tier of guys. And I guarantee you, working for Golf Digest, when you publish this, Steve, people are going to be mad about this Jordan Spieth ranking, but he has not been good.
No, he has not.
Not objectively. And, maybe that starts to shift with the Valero. We're recording this before that happens, but just before that, he hasn't done much of anything. So, I have Bryson over him, and Bryson's proven more to me. I like Bryson's game more right now than Spieth. I like Fitzpatrick's game more than Spieth. So I like where you have Spieth.
What do you make of it, Chris? Because Bryson's an interesting one. My note on him was that he's going to be a threat to win every U.S. Open and every PGA Championship, while basically having no chance to win the Masters or the Open.
Yeah, correct. I was actually going to say that was a guy I thought you had a little low down here. T4 at the PGA last year and was very much in the mix kind of late on the weekend. That kind of wasn't really a fake type of T4. Masters, yeah, you're right. I guess, I don't know. We'll see how he does next week. I don't know if it's ever going to kind of compute with him there. But yeah, US Open, PGA for sure. And then one thing I'll just say on Spieth, I know he has been bad of late. He did finish runner-up in Hawaii, and then he had a couple good finishes and was playing okay at Riviera. And then whatever happened with the scorecard, or he was sick or something, and he has not been the same guy since. So very recently, yes, has not been good, but I do think he was kind of trending in the right direction, and something happened at Riviera, and he's been a completely different golfer since.
He hasn't finished better than T30 in any event this year where he hasn't gained over 5 strokes putting. Like,
you know that putter could go south really quick.
Like, yeah, but he can't hit, like, at least before, like, the biggest difference, like, it would be one thing if he was doing what he did last year. Like, his run at the very beginning of the season last year was awesome, starting in Phoenix. Like, tee to green, 12 strokes gained, 8, 7, 8, 6. This year, minus -3, -1.5, -1.5. Like, he's just hitting balls into the water and missing greens at an alarming rate. He's never really been that great of a driver. Like, there have been peaks of Spieth's career where tee to green, he was untouchable. And he had the nuclear putter to save his ass whenever it went off the rails. But right now, his only out is that he can putt the lights out. And even when he's done that, he can't win.
Yeah, he's obviously fighting something with his swing, which is what we've seen the last couple of years. So I think, that's why it's pretty fair to have him where you have him, Pat. We need to see that those swing changes kind of click before we move him higher on this list.
So DJ, I found tough to rank. Like, I found all of this entire tier really tough to rank because Fitzpatrick's a really interesting one because he made that swing change to gain the more distance in 2022. He wins the U.S. Open. And then I think he ends up with 11 top 10 finishes that year and he didn't lose once off the tee in terms of strokes gained. But since, he's been terrible off the tee. And then he finds this weight that was in his driver in Phoenix. And that doesn't really resolve a lot of his problems. But 1 week he'll be great off the tee and terrible on approach. Then he'll be great on approach and then he can't chip. And then he putts the lights out. The next week he can't putt the lights out. But when it all comes together for him, he is a legitimate contender, which makes his spot really weird because his consistency ranking is not good whatsoever. And that's a part of the metrics that I used in order to do this. But he won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship last year. He won the Heritage last year. He just made a really big run at the Players, but nothing would ever have tipped you off that he was going to do well at any of those events just based on the form that he had coming in.
Yeah.
He's got that weapon with the driver, and that could separate him. But to your point, the consistency hasn't been there. So, we'll see. I think he has to be in this tier, and where you have him again is accurate. It wouldn't surprise me if he contends in a few of these majors, PGA, U.S. Open this year. But going into the Masters, yeah, I'm not too excited about his game.
See, I actually think Chris, he's somewhat interesting for the Masters, only because you can never predict his form anyway. That why not? If it plays as a more difficult Masters, he ended up coming top 10 the year that Willett won in 2016. But if he really does have this weapon off the tee and he can harness that, he can get every facet of his game on the same page at the same time. We've seen it. It could just go disastrously at the same time too.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are talking about the distance thing with him. Obviously, that's a huge factor at Augusta nowadays. I don't know what the number is. I think it's probably okay. So yeah, I don't disagree. He's probably a decent little bet next week.
Burns is a part of this tier too. Another guy I still can't wrap my mind around. He has 6 wins on the PGA Tour. I think people forget about that, but he just comes close and then he doesn't got it. A lot of the, since that run that he went on where he won, where do I have the note here? Since the conclusion of the 2022 FedEx Cup playoffs, Burns has gained 4 strokes on approach once in 33 starts. That's not going to cut it.
And again, with him in the majors, we just haven't
nada.
Yep. Yeah. So, you can't have him higher at this moment. We know the potential is there. And I think he gets knocked for a lot of these wins are lesser tournaments, not to knock the Valspar, but we need to see it on a consistent basis, like the guys above him in the majors.
Yeah. Even if he was able to close out Dunlap at the American Express earlier this year, it would have reflected better on him, I think, at this point, where it's just man, he's just losing to nobodies now when he's in contention. Finau is the one I have right above him. And I wavered on Finau. Initially when I did this, I didn't have him inside my top 30. And I was that's probably not fair. He's losing 3 strokes per start on the greens over his last 10, Chris. But the ball striking is top 5 in the world.
Yep. And he said, I think it was before last week, he said, I feel like I'm playing fine and hitting it great. It's just the scoring's not there. And then that obviously flipped on a dime over the weekend. So I'm sure everyone will be sucked back in next week at Augusta. But yeah, ball striking's there. Driver's always going to be there for him. So yeah, I think you have him properly ranked here.
Yeah, I actually, this is part of my narrative too. And statistically, when we're trying to project people out, Steve, that there are some guys that have sustained very good putting. Sam Burns being one of those guys. He is one of the best putters on the planet. Cam Smith is one of the best putters on the planet. When you're really bad, someone like Scheffler, for example, that when you have this immaculate tee to green game and you're piling up all of these, I think his worst finish in the past 3 years is T31 or something like that. Just some sort of insane number. And most of those events, he lost like 2 to 3 strokes putting. Finau was kind of having like a mimic of what Scheffler was up to through some of his down stretches last year, because Scheffler's, I don't want to compare Finau to Scheffler in terms of when Scheffler's playing at his best, because Finau's never going to do that. But if all of a sudden he just gains 4 strokes at one of these events, he's going to win by 4.
Yeah, he's got that weapon. I mean, but it's crazy to look at the major success the last couple of years. He hasn't had a top 10 at a major since 2021, but we know the ball striking is so elite, but the putting could just be so bad, and it consistently has. So, he tends to play well at Augusta, better on fast greens like these worst putters can be. So it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes top 10, but I'm probably not there. I need to see it a little more around the greens on a more consistent basis.
Sure, but like where I have him, let's see, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, ahead of Burns, Bryson, and Jordan.
Yeah.
I feel good about that, Chris.
Yeah, I would maybe make a case for Burns just based off the kind of prolific winner he's become. Obviously,
hold on. Burns has 6 wins. Finau has 4.
That's 2 more.
Yeah,
last time I checked.
But if we shrink down the sample to past 2 years, it's Finau over Burns.
Yeah. Yeah, interchangeable, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and they have. I like the skill set Finau has more than the skill set that Burns has. At least what they've shown over the course of the past 2 years. I think one leads to more consistent finishes. One leads to the upside if the putter can ever flip. Because with Burns, if he finally has a great ball striking week, maybe he doesn't putt well that week, and then he doesn't win anyway.
Yep.
So that's
it could go south. It could go south for Burns.
Yeah. Like I had DJ a spot behind Morikawa. Like, are we worried that DJ, what's the guy, like 40, 41 now, that maybe he's just past the prime?
I don't know. I have him in the top 15. And again, that's probably just being a creature of looking at what the world rankings should be and, knowing what he's done over a long sample size in his major career and thinking he's so live at his current number at the Masters next week. That's an auto bet to me. So to me, I'd rather have him over any of the guys in that range. I mean, Burns, Finau, DJ just feels, we know he could do it. And it wouldn't surprise us if he ends his career with two Masters wins.
Yeah, I can see that too, but he feels like someone who's going to show up for one of the majors every year now.
Yeah.
He might just not have enough gas in the tank for any of them, for all of them, mind you. Like he came second at the 2021 Open. Where the hell was that at? Royal St. George's. I don't even remember that. Who the hell won? Oh, Morikawa won. No, that's wrong. I'm looking at Jordan Spieth. That's why. I was like,
eighth.
I don't remember that at all. So yeah, Dustin, he came 8th.
T8 2021, T6 2022 Open, and then last year he was there at LACC. It looks like he finished tied 10th though to finish.
Yeah, he had that one really disastrous hole, I think, in the second round, and that basically just thrust him out of contention. He's kind of had to grind out a top 10. And that T6 at the Open in 22, the one that Cam Smith won, that was at St. Andrews, where obviously he has a very good track record. That was one where Bryson played really well too. I don't think that if you're trying to like project out Open championships, I think you can basically take St. Andrews out of the equation. Like, I don't think it really translates to any of the other courses.
Yeah, Troon will be interesting this year. That's more of a, typical link style course like we know. And the last time we saw it was Stenson versus Phil. It typically gives us some great battles down the stretch.
It does, but I mean, it was only Stenson versus Phil because the 8 guys or 9 guys who played in that pocket where the weather wasn't so bad were the top 8 guys on the leaderboard.
Yeah, we had JB Holmes.
JB.
Top 4, which is great. I was there talking to my guy JB, and now look at him.
But just to look back at the performances from Dustin in majors the past few years: miscut 10th, 55th, 48th last year, 6th, 24th, miscut. It's not so great.
I think I've been in all those majors.
Yeah,
too.
I thought it was a little better than that, but yeah, I guess. All this time off that he's so happy about, it leads to a little less sharpness on the 4 biggest weeks of the year.
Yeah, he won in Vegas earlier this year on Live. I bet him to win at Doral this week on Live. Like I think that the upside is still there, but I think that when he gets to that age and he's not putting in the same grind that he used to, it's going to be sparse. So he still gets the credit of, you know, being a great player. He does have a win this year, and we know what his upside can be, but there's like his consistency just it's way down versus some of these other guys.
Yeah. He's a bet for me at the Masters and probably none of the other majors this year.
I can see that. It feels like he'll always. I can see the U.S.
See Pinehurst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. U.S. Open champ, decent short game.
Although, I mean, it's so hard to take away from Pinehurst, especially the last time that we saw it when Keimer just nuked the field. And then like second and third were like Patrick Reed and Eric Compton. It's like, okay, I don't know what this is really telling us here.
Yeah. 8 shots back. Ricky gutting out at T2. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows how the course will play. I hope Super Brown again.
So now that I'm looking at this, especially after I've written it up, so the next 4 guys I have from 26 to 29, I have Louis, Lowry, Fleetwood, and Hatton. I think Lowry needs to be way higher on this list.
Yeah, that stuck out to me too. I just didn't know who to move him up over. I mean, you know, I guess you can make the case for like Cantlay. He hasn't won in 3 years.
I was going to say
Lowry
over,
felt low.
like, do I put him, like, would you rather, who's a better player, Chris, Homa or Shane Lowry? I know that people like Max Homa, but like, if we're thinking about golf.
Well, I mean, to go back to your point, Pat, I think Lowry gets a little too much credit for his lone major victory. I don't know. What has he won since? Do we know?
He won Wentworth last year, I think.
Okay. That's a good one.
So, I mean, obviously, he's a lot like some of these Euros. Like he has one win in the U.S. in his lifetime, and that was at Firestone when that was a WGC. I think that was in 2015. So he's not the closer, and that sort of thing, why he can't be very high on this list. But we just nitpick guys who are way higher on this list who can't win, be it Xander or Cam Young, and these guys are inside the top 15. When we take a look at Lowry, basically, if you could just get, like, if he could hire someone to putt for him on Sundays, he'd have like 13 wins on the PGA Tour.
Yeah. And he's
you said, what did you say, Homa? He's definitely been way better than Homa in the majors historically. So
right.
I guess Lowry, I'll take Lowry there.
But
yeah.
then Fleetwood is right there. And Fleetwood has the sustained, you know, consistency in the majors. Again, like Lowry hasn't got it done on the PGA Tour, but, you know, has Fleetwood's window closed? Maybe, but yeah,
well,
he continues to do it at the majors.
How old is Fleetwood?
It's like 35, I want to say.
He's 33.
Yeah.
Damn.
So there's a lot of time for Tommy to rebound. It's just his I mean, he won in the Middle East earlier this year, so that's to his credit. If I'm going to give Rory credit for that, I should give him credit for beating Rory in that opening event on the DP World Tour. But he's been like actively bad since coming to the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been weird. But again, he just seems to show up at these majors and put up a top 10 or, you know, shoot a great round like he did at LACC. So yeah, he's going to do it again in one of these majors. Just who knows which one it is.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he has had a lot of major success relative to. I mean, he's kind of like mini Rory in that way, where just, you know, everyone just he gags it away every single time. But he has all of these high-end finishes. He was 10th at the Open last year. He was 5th at the U.S. Open, 18th at the PGA Championship, and 33rd at the Masters. And to cycle back the year before, 4th at the Open, miscut at the U.S. Open, 5th at the PGA Championship, and 14th at the Masters. It's just, when you take a look at his tee to green form right now coming in, it's like Cantlay-esque how bad it's been. Like, usually he plays Florida really well, and that just didn't happen at all. The only reason that he made the cut at Riv or at the Players is because he putted the lights out. Like, the approach play was just god awful, and that's kind of his calling card. So I docked him bigly for that. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe Tommy's another guy I need to move up. Like, if I'm going to move Lowry up ahead Homa into like the 18 range, maybe Tommy should be like, should Tommy be ahead of Finau?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think he's done it at the majors more than Finau has. It's
sure, but that's only one part of the equation here.
Yeah, it's whether we're weighing that against the PGA Tour victories, which Finau has a big leg up. But you know, he did it in Mexico, Tony Finau. Like, you know, do we give him more credit there than Fleetwood's great success in the majors? It's a good debate.
Yeah, I mean, let's have the debate. Would you put Tommy ahead of Finau?
I think I would. I feel like, for Troon this year, Fleetwood feels like a great fit for there.
Again,
He
these
needs
aren't
to
these
figure out-
aren't these aren't the British Open rankings. These are the world rankings as it stands right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So for now, that's a tough one. They seem like they should be right next to each other, for being honest.
All right, so would you go Fleetwood over Burns, Chris?
No, I would not. I would give Burns credit for winning on the PGA Tour, something Fleetwood has not done.
All right, I'm going to move Fleetwood ahead of Spieth because, frankly, Tommy's been better than Spieth.
It's fair.
So the last two, Louis and Tyrrell Hatton. Hatton, it's unfair to him because he left at the same time as Rahm and that people kind of forgot he existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's he done on Live? I think he has a top 10, and that's about it.
He had a top 10 at the opening Live event at Mayo, and he's actually had worse finishes every time that they've played an event.
Yeah.
But
And
he
we
had.
know he hates Augusta.
I was say he hates Augusta, but he had like one of the more underrated seasons for a guy who didn't win last year. Like he was great a year ago. He had, let's see, he started the year with top 10s in the Middle East. He had 17 top 20s in 23 starts.
Wow. Yeah. If he was still on the PGA Tour, he'd probably be higher on this list, but he's not.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Been pretty brutal in the majors over the last 4 years. It looks like but was pretty good in them before that. But I don't want to go back too far.
Yeah, like he's been okay in the majors. Like he was T20 at the Open, T27 at the US Open, T15 at the PGA. I can't ever recall a time where Hatton's been in position to actually like try to win a major.
No.
Never.
All right, so I'm going to keep him down low. I have Louis ranked ahead of him. Louis, not invited to the Masters somehow. Niemann can go play all over the world and get Live wins, and all of a sudden that he's in. Louis takes a break from Live to go play in South Africa during the swing, wins back-to-back events, and people are like, go fuck yourself, Louis. It's unfair.
And then it is. It definitely is. I mean, he's definitely the best player not playing at Augusta, and he was so close in 2012. I had that ticket on him, the playoff loss to Bubba, but doesn't get it done. And now he's probably never going to play Augusta again, as crazy as that is, unless they come to some sort of agreement here and he rockets up the world rankings. But he's so far down right now.
He's not that far down because he got the 2 wins, and then he just finished, what was it, third in Oman. No, he finished second in Oman. He finished second in Niemann and Jeddah, but that doesn't count towards the world rankings. So he's actively trying to get himself into these things. Let me see where Louis ranks.
He's 118,
118,
which is nuts.
Yeah, he should be higher than that, but he'll be in the Open Championship. So if he finishes inside the top 5 there, he'd get himself into the Masters the following year.
Yeah. So I shouldn't say he's played his last Masters.
Yeah, so Troon feels like a good course for him too. Maybe he could potentially do that. It's just the form that he's in right now, both on Live and other places, that it's obviously not as hot as Niemann has been, but it's kind of close.
Yep.
And that leaves the 30th ranked player on this list, who I don't have yet. This is hard, man. Like really hard. I
was looking through this.
I have it down to 2 guys because I wanted to make the case for Siwoo just because his stat profile is amazing right now. It's just, he is bad. Like, I can't believe, I went back, I was like, I'm going to make the case for Siwoo. His tee to green game is top 5 in the world right now. He usually plays the Masters like kind of well, which he does. He like makes the cut every single year. But he's been bad at major championships in his career.
Yeah. And
yes.
Same thing with Nick Taylor. Like, I'd like to make the case for your boy, Nick Taylor, fellow Canadian. Took down Scotty Scheffler in Phoenix, but, aside from that in the majors, hasn't done much. But, the potential is there, and he's ranked 25th in the world without all these Live guys. But this could be his breakout season. So I could see a case for him being in the top 30.
Yeah, he was one of the 2 guys that I had pegged for number 30. I had Nick Taylor. I mean, he has 2 wins in the past 8 months. It's not nothing. And he has some pretty high finishes as well in some other events. But obviously he does not have a major track record to speak of. And the other guy is Russell Henley, Chris.
I thought you were going to say Corey Connors because I was kind of fully prepared to make a case for Connor. We're talking about consistency. We're talking about performances in the majors, the Masters specifically. Recent form. Probably will win again this week at Valero.
Oh, hold on. Oh, you realize only one guy can win at Valero. You've already named 5 guys that are going to win at Valero this week.
Have I? I don't think I have.
Oh,
You're looking at all.
Let's see. Spieth could win. Ludwig can win. I know Rory might show up, as I heard. Now Connors is definitely going to win. Like, only one of them gets to win.
Well, anyway, I think Connors has a legit case to be the 30th best player in the world. But you mentioned Henley, obviously. Talk about a guy who's been very consistent over the last however many years. Obviously very good down south. Some decent showings in the majors.
Yeah.
What was that, Torrey Pines, he had the lead on Sunday with Blandy.
So this is what it came down to, which I was really shocked about. It was like almost kind of the case that I made for Wyndham Clark a little bit, that he just shows up in these big events. Obviously, he's not as good as Wyndham Clark. Like, he missed the cut at the Players. Wyndham Clark came second. I mean, that's a big event. But the week before, he was 4th at a signature event at the Arnold Palmer. He was 4th at the Sony earlier. That's like a nothing event. 2nd at the Wyndham last year. But in the playoffs, he was 8th and 14th. He was 14th at the U.S. Open. He was 4th at the Masters last year. He was top 20 at the Players the year before that. He has some pretty high finishes. Like, he just... I don't know. Like, because I considered Corey Connors too, but I just felt like there was no way I could give Connors the nod over Nick Taylor if we're going Canadian versus Canadian based on what they've done in the past year.
Yeah, that's fair. Any Taylor Gooch takes on 30th best player in the world?
I think Paul Casey's better than him. And I don't think Paul Casey's a top 30 player.
Jason Day, like, I think Day could have been in the conversation, hasn't done much this year.
Yeah.
So, I don't think you could include him, but he's right there in that next tier.
Yeah, he was another one. Abe Answer, who just won on Live in Hong Kong, but he hadn't really done anything in the year previous to a Live win, so I don't know if that's enough. Justin Rose is just kind of consistently just like Jason Day is. Like, the two that felt like they should be on this list, but we haven't really seen anything, and maybe they're both hurt. I don't know. It's Tom Kim and Sung Jae Im.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sung Jae. I mean, he's been objectively bad this year. We've bet on him a bunch, but I don't think he belongs there right now. He's got to show us that he's fixing these swing things that he's working on.
Yeah, so the last time he was any good was he came 5th at the Century when he broke that like birdies record. He hasn't finished.
Yep.
He has 1 top 20 and 10 starts after that. And the majors have never really been super kind to Sung Jae at all. He was 16th at the Masters. He made a run when I say made a run, he came a very distant second to Dustin Johnson at the weird November Masters like 4 years ago, whenever that was. But that's not really saying all that much. It just seems like he's out of sort of like when we factor in recent form for Sung Jae, this is now a guy who has lost strokes on approach in 7 of his past 8 starts. That's not getting it done. And Tom Kim, I don't know what to make of him.
No.
Yeah, I think he shows up this year and obviously had a very gritty finish at the Open Championship. Not quite sure what's going on, but I do know he made a trip to Augusta last week to go play a little practice round. So, things should be trending up for Tom Kim, but tough to make a case for including him at this point.
Yeah, 3 top 20s in majors last year, 2 top 10s. He came top 10 at the U.S. Open and the Open Championship. So a good, major track record for a very young player. He did pick up the win during the swing season when he repeated in Vegas at Summerlin, but I don't see it with him right now. So he kind of gets kicked out a little bit. And then you can I think you can make a case for Pavon. He's played pretty well, but I just don't see it. Jake Knapp.
Harris English, I was going to mention. Obviously, the injury kind of knocked him well down the rankings, but he was a Ryder Cupper. I believe it was Winged Foot. He was in the mix with Bryson. Very consistent player, consistent ball striker. I think Harris English has a case here.
Hey, they played at Winged Foot in 2020, Chris.
Feels like yesterday.
Yeah. Were you there or something? Like, it was just embedded in the back of your mind?
No.
Let's see. He actually was actually top 10 at LA Country Club last year. Yeah.
You go.
I mean, I bet on him to win Valero. There's another guy who's going to win Valero, so I might as well just project that into him. He has a bunch of top 10s, a bunch of top 20s, just very consistent. Like he's sort of like Russell Henley, but without the very top end finishes that Henley has generated over the past 2 years.
Yep. Strong week at Riviera for Harris English. I'm a Harris English guy, so I'm just pumping his tires.
Yeah, like I think if this was like a talent ranking, that we would probably have. I mean, like even like Nikolai Højgaard, I think you'd have a case for at this point. But I don't think he's actually done enough to warrant being this high. I honestly, I think it comes back down to Russell Henley versus Nick Taylor as the last spot.
Yeah.
Let's vote.
Yeah, I'd give the nod to Taylor with the victories. You know, the Canadian Open and in Phoenix. Those are some big time wins.
Chris?
Taylor. I was very, very impressed by the way he finished both of those off.
All right, so Nick Taylor is going to end up being the 30th best golfer in the world in the unofficial World Golf Rankings, or the Mayo WGR. Thanks for taking my shit for the past hour. I appreciate it.
Enjoyed it.
This is what we do as editors. So,
yeah, you got to try to pick holes and not make a case for Ben Ann or Keegan Bradley or anyone like that.
Minwoo Lee, no love for Minwoo.
You know what?
Talent, he'd be top 30.
Yeah, like Siwoo, Minwoo. I mean, if it was me, I'd just rank Thirsty Lawrence at like number 10, but obviously he hasn't done all that well so far. Thorbjorn's actually played pretty well on the DP World Tour, done nothing since coming over. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just feels like there's a very clear class of like 25 guys who are kind of awesome, and then everyone else is just kind of mixing and matching right after that right now, which is a great spot to be in if they all fucking played together all the time.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be so fun.
And it's a great place to be that, you know, we have a tier of, you know, the top 7 or 8 guys we all agreed upon. And then that next 15 or 20, we had some solid disagreements. So, no, you know, it's unfortunate we are where we are in the world of golf, but you know, I think discussions like this are ones that are happening in every grill room, every group of buddies, you know, before every major. So this is fun.
Are the live guys allowed to be a part of the golf league? Do you know?
The TGL?
Yeah.
No, I don't think any of them are, right?
See, there's the move. Get some buzz there. Live guys versus PGA guys in the simulator league or whatever the hell.
Best hit into a screen ranking. We could do that next episode.
I guarantee you, Bryson would be the best player in the world on a simulator.
Yep.
Like, it wouldn't even be close.
Bryson v Fitz would be a pretty nice match on the sim.
All right. Well, what do you guys got like cooking up here? Like, we're going to do this column for, you know, pre-Masters, but I guarantee you that, I mean, I don't know the insights of what you guys are doing at Golf Digest for the Masters, but I assume this is Super Bowl week for you guys.
We got a nice little piece of content coming tomorrow, right, Steve?
Yeah, CP and I obviously got to play Augusta last year, so we wrote a little piece on what it was like for a bogey golfer to go play Augusta, and had some fun little insights on how you might do if you got to play Augusta. So check out that. Check out all of our gambling content. Obviously, Pat, you've been a member of our betting panel since it started in 2018. You were the first name I called up as, you know, the leader in this space. So bunch of gambling content also with Keith Stewart of Read the Line, our new contributor. So a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, and Andy Lack does all of the DFS stuff for you guys over at Golf Digest as well, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. Got us a winner last week on the board. So now I don't have to write the intro and just point to your matchup record, Pat, as the reason to read the column.
Hey, I have a winner too. I had
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We now have 3 as a team, as I like to write it.
I was really hoping it wasn't going to be Jagger and it was going to be Taylor Moore, not only for my bank account, but for just me having all the wins in the column. But he couldn't.
How it should be.
Maybe Taylor Moore. If he won, I would have ranked him 30 just for being a hero, just for me. I don't actually mind him at Augusta. So what is it like playing Augusta? If you want to give me some insight to this column, because the column will already be out by the time that this show comes out. Because someone asked me the other day that if I got to start would I win the Masters if I got to place my ball on the green instead of on the tee box? I was like, I think that I would probably win the Masters if I only had to putt. Like, there might be some 5 putts in there, but you know, I'd get lucky, drain 1, and I'd 2-putt a bunch of the time once I figured out the speed of the greens. I think at least, right?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
The tougher thing is like approaching some of these greens. I mean, getting the walk on them really made us realize like the third green is so narrow. CP and I hit approaches that we thought were good. I went off the green. I didn't even finish the hole. Same thing with the 7th hole. I was in the middle of the fairway. Thought I had like 10 feet for birdie. I was in a bunker, didn't finish the hole.
Mhm.
So if you place your ball on the greens, I think you'd be competitive at least. You'd be top 10.
Yeah. Like, is that the hardest part about Augusta, Chris? Like, just understanding the green complexes and being good around those greens?
Yeah, and I mean, we're not exactly approach gods here, Steve and I, but the second shot, the approach shot's in, it's such a tiny little space on the green where you need to land it to have any kind of a decent look. And if you miss that little box on each green, you're gonna have a tricky up and down basically anywhere around the green. So yeah, it's a very tough approach golf course, especially for an 8 and a 11 handicap. Although I think Steve's might be getting closer to single digits these days.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's my goal for the year. I got down to a 10 last year, and I'm hoping to break through that. Although I think I would shoot 400 at Augusta National. Just like you were talking about, like you picked up the ball on number 3, like with that Sunday pin position on number 3. If you go long on that little part, like, are you just dead?
Yes. Yeah. I had a bump and run, did exactly what the caddy told me as my third shot. I actually hit it and he said, "That's a great shot." And it rolled over the green and I made a triple pretty quickly.
Yeah, you need to hit it to where
I'm banning myself from tweeting any negative words about a guy I bet on not making birdie on that hole. Because watching it my whole life, playing it on Tiger Woods, I thought this is the easiest birdie hole on the course. And once you see it up close, you realize that's very much not the case.
Well, I remember having bet on Minwoo last year at the Masters, and I think either the day 1 or day 2, it was basically drivable, and he drove the green. He put it on the fringe and 4-putted.
Yep. I won't make fun of anyone who does that this year.
That was the end of that chapter for my Minwoo bet 3 holes into the tournament. I was like, well, it was a fun run, I suppose. He got himself to this point when we didn't even know if he was going to qualify or not. So Stephen Hennessy, Chris Powers, Golf Digest, check out everything going on over there along with the column, and check out the show that I've already released. As you are listening to this right now, the final rankings, although you just heard us talk through how I got to the final rankings, you can see the really cleaned up form in point form and me pointing at the camera a lot and really making some definitive points about things that sometimes you just got to talk it through and make up your power rank. So thank you all for engaging with this and helping out this experiment. I put a lot of time into it, so I really hope you guys did enjoy this. And we got Masters coming up. Masters content day after day after day on Mayo Media Network. The research show will be up next. I have John Rathouse, who has caddied at the Masters, and Justin Ray to talk about the statistical profiles. Hopefully he's better at giving me the stats than I am at saying the words. I mean, he is. This we know about Justin Ray. And I'll be doing my walkthrough on Fantasy National as well. Then we got bets. Then we got the best bets of the week. And then we got the DraftKings picks. And then Jeff and I are going to be live at the Circa Hotel at the Stadium Swim on Wednesday evening, taking your questions, finalizing the bets. And I'm giving away $750 cold hard cash, 3 So get in those draws. Join Underdog Fantasy using code Mayo. You get the special promos, the 2 free squares, and you get into that draw along with the ratings and reviews on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. All right. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!